there, this is week 4 and the final week of Growing Local's recipe kits. This week we are making a veggie and noodle stir fry. So we'll show you how to do that, and there's also extra ingredients in your pack this week which are sultanas and a recipe for Welsh cakes. I think you had scones last week as a recipe, so you could also use those sultanas in the scones. And there's a nice recipe here for a pear and apple crumble, and if you have a little look through the wish videos, there is a crumble recipe on there as well for you to follow if you wish to. So we're going to do the chicken and veggie stir fry today, and we're going to start by cooking the noodles, which is really straightforward. I've just literally boiled the kettle, so we're going to pour that over the noodles. Obviously be careful, it's boiling water. The noodles that we got in the pack were 250 grams and the recipe asks for 200, but I'm just going to use them all. Obviously you could weigh them out and be precise if you wanted to. So these will sit in the water just for a few minutes and they'll soften, and then we'll cook them off at the end when all the rest of the ingredients are ready. So we'll just sit those there out of the way, and then we'll prepare our chicken. So I've got 2 lovely chicken breasts here, and they've got the skin on still. So what I'm going to do is just take the skin off, and we just peel it off really, and when you get to the end just snip it. Now you can leave this on by all means, but it might go chewy when you stir fry it, so I'm not going to waste it. I'm actually going to roast it in the oven and make myself some crispy chicken skin, because when I roast a chicken, that's my favourite part. So to chop the chicken into strips, I am going to use scissors. You can do this with a sharp knife if you've got one, but I'm just going to hold it and chop it. This is a separate chopping board that I have here for chopping raw meat onto. I'm just going to pop it into the bowl. And obviously once I've chopped the chicken, then I will wash my hands thoroughly, clear down all of this area as well. If you don't like handling the meat, you can just use a fork and knife and fork and just chop it on the chopping board, like I say, with a sharp knife. Or you can buy ready diced chicken. Okay, so that's the chicken chopped and in a bowl ready. You can see that there is a little bit of chicken that has come off onto the side here, so I'm just going to take this away and clear it all up, and then I'll be back with you. And now we're going to marinate this chicken in some Chinese 5-spice, which you will have got with your package. So a heaped teaspoon of this spice. Sprinkle it all over. A dessert spoon, so what you eat your ice cream with, of soya sauce. And a tablespoon of sweet chilli sauce. Now these flavours go delicious together, so don't worry too much about exact measurements. You can sort of do it by taste, and we'll be adding a little bit more towards the end once we've tasted it, depending on what you prefer. So I'm just going to mix all of that together with a fork so that all of the chicken's covered with that. And then I will just leave that to soak up some of the delicious flavours while we prepare the vegetables. So the vegetables are all here ready washed. I just want to quickly show you that the noodles have softened already. So I'm just going to stay in there until, again, I've done the vegetables, but you can see that they are softening, like a super noodle. So I have already washed these. I've got 3 carrots, which we've worked with before. So we're going to take the top and the bottom of the carrot, chop them into manageable sizes, and then cut them into half, safely using the bridge so that we can chop them on a flat edge. And I've scrubbed these, but if you prefer you can peel them. And then we're just going to cut them down into nice thin batons. And if you were a bit worried, you could use a fork to guide you if you didn't want to get your fingers in the way. Carrots chopped, and place those into a bowl out of the way. And then we have kale, curly kale, still a bit damp. You can either rip this off or chop it, so this is a good one for the children. The stalk is quite woody, so I'm going to discard that completely actually, and then I'll just finish with a knife. But like I say, if you've got your mini chefs helping, you can just get them to rip them completely. Half a head of broccoli, again you can just rip this off, it might make a bit of a mess as bits of the florets go flying, or again you can just chop it down onto the board. And we don't want to leave the pieces too big because they won't cook at the same time as these other smaller vegetables, so I'm just going to trim them to make them cook through quicker. If you haven't tried raw broccoli, you really should. It's actually really delicious. Lots of people have used carrots to dip in their sauces, but raw broccoli or cauliflower actually is also nice. Then we also have these green beans, which I'm just going to, some of them look, I've got a bottom on a stem, so I'm just going to remove those. Then we can just, again, either just rip them really easily into pieces or chop. So because they're very easy, I'm going to rip these ones. And then 4 spring onions, again I've got a few more than 4 here, but I'm actually just going to use them all. Or maybe a few extra, I'll save a couple. So I've washed them, I've taken the outer layer off, I'm just going to remove the bottom of the onion, and then I'm going to hold them at the top and just slice them thinly. You can safely do them all at the same time, as long as you remember to move your hand back as you go. And if you are cooking with mini chefs, you can chop these with scissors really easily as well. Okay, just get rid of the very top parts. So the spring onions are actually going into the pan at the end, not at the same time as the rest of the vegetables. So I'm going to leave those separate because they're all going in the pan together. And the final thing that I need to do is just grate the ginger. So I am going to just trim some of the skin off, but the rest will come off and we can separate it from the grater. So working down on the grater, on the back. Okay, that's everything ready now. We've got everything prepared. I'm going to tidy it up a little bit in a second. So we've got vegetables ready, noodles ready, and chicken marinated. So I'm going to go to the sink and strain these and then cover them with a dessert spoon, I think, of sesame oil. Now it said use a colander or a sieve, and as you can see I chose the sieve, and it's a bit small for my noodles. So that's got rid of the excess water. Go back now and pop some sesame oil onto them. So this gives it a really nice nutty taste, and you've been supplied with this, but if you didn't have sesame oil in future you can just do this with normal olive oil. It just won't have the nuttiness. Mix that through. It also helps to stop the starch in the noodles, making them too sticky. Just going to clean this down slightly and then we'll start cooking. Looking a little bit tidier now, so some of you might be a little bit tidier about cooking than I am. Yeah, I try. So I've got 1 tablespoon of oil now in this big pan. You can use a large frying pan if you wish, or just a large pan would also do the job, but being shallow, wider base is actually quite useful for cooking everything evenly. So the first thing that we do now is cook the chicken, and we need the chicken to be cooked right through. So I'm going to add this into the pan. Just move it around a little bit and let that all go white. That's how we know that it's starting to cook, it's when it's changed colour. Okay, so that should take about 5 minutes, so I'm going to let that happen. While it's cooking, I do just want to leave the recipe to one side slightly and just show you, if you have noodles at home, you could make your own pot noodle by putting in the dry noodles in the bottom and just breaking them up a little bit, and then taking whatever vegetables it is that you like. So because we've already done these vegetables, I'm going to use these vegetables, and starting with the heaviest, so the ones that would take the longest to cook, you place them in on top of the noodles. Now I've cut these for cooking, so if I was doing this I'd probably try and cut them a little bit thinner, or even use a carrot peeler, to make thin ribbons, because you're only going to be cooking these with water rather than heat. So also I'll stick a little bit of the broccoli in there, because like I say, we've got some. Other things that look really nice in this is baby sweet corn mange too, so the green beans can go in, and then the kale on top because that's the lightest, and a few spring onions. And then what you've got there is something that you can keep. Imagine you've got all of your favourite vegetables in there, obviously. Sweet corn also works really well, or frozen peas. And then when you're ready to cook it, make up some stock using a stock cube and just pour it in up until the line of the noodles, and that will cook the noodles like you saw with these noodles, but also steam the vegetables that are above it. And then if you want to add some dressing, you can buy some ready-made dressing, such as the sweet chilli sauce, or you can make your own, just mix and match with whatever it is that you like. So that's just another top tip while the chicken started to cook. I don't know if you want to come and see how it's starting to just change colour. I always think it's a shame you can't smell this, it smells delicious. Okay, so to save you watching me stir, I'll come back to you when this chicken's cooked, and then we'll start to cook the vegetables. So this chicken's been cooking probably 5 to 6-7 minutes. I did cut mine probably slightly bigger than the recipe said, so you just need to bear that in mind depending on how you cut it, sorry. But if you take a piece out and cut through, it needs to be white all the way through. If it is, then you're ready to go. If it's not, if it's still a bit pink and fleshy, then leave it to cook a little bit longer. And make sure that you pick one of the larger pieces if they're not all evenly sized, just to make sure. So I'm confident that the chicken's cooked now. So what I'm going to do is just remove it from the pan. And then we'll add this back in. So we're just taking it out to give the vegetables a chance to cook through. And then we'll return the chicken to the vegetables and mix it all together at the end. What I love about stir fry is that this is with noodles, but you can leave the noodles out, so you can just add extra vegetables and have the chicken and vegetables on their own. You can leave the noodles out and serve it with rice or in a fajita. And you can obviously leave the chicken out and just do stir fried vegetables, or substitute the vegetables, the meat, for things like chickpeas or tofu. So I'm just adding a little bit more oil. Popping in the ginger. Hopefully I've got this in the right order. I've tried to memorise the recipe, but if I haven't, it really doesn't matter. And then in with the vegetables. And a spoonful of the sesame oil. If you find that this is too dry as you're mixing it, then just add in some water. And that will also help the vegetables to cook. Spring onions are going to go in, so once the vegetables are almost cooked, we'll add the spring onions in then. So just let this cook along for a little while, and then we'll bring it all together. Quite often I season my food with salt and pepper, you'll have seen that, and a lot of recipes call for that, but in this particular instance, the soya is providing quite a lot of salty flavour anyway, so we're not adding any extra salt to this dish. So I'm just going to let the vegetables cook again, and then we'll come back and just finish everything off. Vegetables are almost cooked, so they're looking really good. So I'm just going to add the spring onions in. And give them a stir through and just leave them to cook for another minute, just final touches. And when I was being unsure earlier about the sesame oil and the soy sauce, it was soy sauce I should have added, not sesame oil. The sesame oil was later. It's not going to make any difference, so we'll add the soy sauce now, one now, and another one when we add the noodles in. Again, if you've made this a few times, you'll be able to adapt the flavours to what you like. You might like more sweet chilli over soya. Nice and colourful. You can obviously add whatever vegetables you want into this to change it, make it more colourful or different colours, whatever it is that you like. Take things out that you don't like, add things in that you do like. So finally now we're just going to put the chicken back in and those juices as well. And then the noodles. So if you remember, I cooked slightly too many noodles, so I might just leave a few out. And the recipe says use tongs, and you know I don't have tongs, so a fork and a spoon it is. And we're just mixing all of this together. Just to incorporate the flavours. A little bit more soy sauce. I'm just going to go rogue this time and give it a good splash in. And then again, like I say, the recipe says taste, so that you can get the flavours that you like. I know I like sweet chilli sauce. I'm definitely adding a little bit of extra sweet chilli sauce into there. It does have a reasonably high sugar content, so be a little bit careful with that one. You don't want it to be too sweet. And if you like it spicy, you could always add in a few fresh chillies or chilli flakes into the mixture as well. There we have it. And I think the most difficult part of this recipe, without tongs anyway, is making it look pretty in a bowl. So because it's the last week, I'm going to do it for you on camera, because these food shows always do a better job than me. But I think they might have some clever touching up done at the end. But regardless of my husband's camera skills and my presentation skills, I think that makes a really nice looking plate of food. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.